"We're giving Jonathan the house," my dad announced at dinner. "That's the house I paid for," I said, staring at them in shock. 6 months later, I bought it back and evicted them all. I entered the home thinking it would just be a regular meal with my family. Earlier that day, my mother had messaged me saying, "Come by after your shift. We haven't seen you lately. Let's share a meal." I was worn out from the week and nearly declined, but some part of me, maybe routine, guilt, or whatever part still valued family more than myself, said yes. Looking back, the signs were clear. The moment I stepped inside, I sensed something strange. Balloons were hanging, and a sign said, "Congrats, Jonathan and Alice." My brother and his fiancée sat smiling at the dinner table, their fingers laced together, laughing with my parents. I stopped cold, gripping the strap of my bag tightly. "What's going on?" I asked. My mother's face lit up the second she noticed me. "Catherine, perfect timing." I glanced at each of them, waiting to hear what this was about. My father got up and gave Jonathan a proud pat on the shoulder. "We've got exciting news," he said happily. Jonathan looked at me, smirking, like I should already know. Suddenly, my stomach dropped. "We're giving them the house," my dad said, grinning. "It's our gift for their wedding." The words hit me like a punch. "You're what?" I asked, blinking. Mom giggled softly like I must have misunderstood. "Sweetie, it just makes sense. Jonathan and Alice are starting fresh. They'll need a place to live." I stood frozen, my thoughts racing, trying to catch up with what I just heard. Jonathan's grin grew. "Can you believe it?" Alice was so shocked. He turned to her, squeezed her hand, and added, "We thought we'd be renting for years. Now we get to start life with something solid." Solid. I had spent years putting money away for that house. I juggled 2 jobs, skipped trips, lived cheap, just so I could buy it. And now they were handing it off like it meant nothing. My throat tightened. "That's my house," I said, my voice smaller now. Dad sighed like I was making a fuss. "Catherine, legally it's not really yours. It's under our names for legal safety. That's what they told me when I signed for it. It's just legal stuff, Catherine. Nothing changes." I trusted them. I believed every word. Now I stood there watching them give away what I had worked so hard for, like I didn't matter. My fingers curled tighter around my bag. "I'm the one who paid for it," I said again, more quietly. Jonathan rolled his eyes. "Don't be dramatic, Rach. Don't be greedy." I looked right at him. Greedy? He was taking what I earned, and I was the greedy one. Alice, beside him, brushed her hair behind her ear and gave me a fake, soft smile. "You're so capable, Catherine. You'll manage." That was always the excuse, wasn't it? I could handle everything. I was strong. I'd figure it out. Jonathan? He always needed more. More help, more care, more chances. All the things I had to earn the hard way. I looked at my mom and dad. "Do you think this is okay?" Mom smiled with that same polite face. "It's for the good of the family." But it wasn't our family anymore. It was his. I let out a quiet breath and closed my mouth. I could argue. I could cry. But for what? The house was legally theirs. They'd already made their decision. So I gave one nod, swallowed every word I wanted to say, and walked away. I didn't collect my belongings. I didn't even go to my room. I just turned, walked out the front door, and left it all behind. Let them keep it. Let them live with their choice. Because someday I knew they would regret it. They just didn't see it yet. And I never turned back. I climbed inside my vehicle, turned the key, and pulled away, squeezing the steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt. I didn't shed a tear. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even allow myself to think too deeply. Because if I did, I might have gone back and demanded they understand how much they had taken from me. But I knew the truth. They wouldn't care at all. So instead, I kept my attention on driving, telling myself to breathe, while making the only real choice I had left. I needed to manage life without their help. It wasn't like I'd never done that before. That very night, I found a place I could rent for a short time. A tiny single-bedroom unit, barely large enough to walk around in. But it belonged to me. The following day, I spent nearly all the money I had left to pay the upfront cost and first month of rent. And just like that, I had a new space to live. It wasn't the house I had worked so hard for. It wasn't the one I had earned. But it gave me a bed to sleep in. A place where nobody could take away what was mine. After that, I poured myself into my job. I accepted more hours, signed up for extra tasks, and pushed harder than ever. I rose through the ranks faster than before, determined to build a life that was mine, and only mine, one that had nothing to do with them. And it worked. 3 months later, I received a new role and a pay increase that changed everything. For the first time in my life, I was financially stable. I no longer had to stretch every paycheck just to survive. I wasn't covering anyone else's expenses. Each dollar I made stayed in my pocket, and I was doing well. Meanwhile, my mom, dad, and Jonathan stopped reaching out. No messages, No calls, no quick check-ins to see how I was. It was like I had disappeared from their world. That was supposed to be okay. I told myself I was fine with it, but small things kept slipping into my thoughts. A colleague at work mentioned, "Hey, I think I saw your mom at the store. She didn't look so great." Or a faraway cousin sent me a message on Facebook. "Is everything okay with your family? Your dad seemed stressed last time I saw him." At first I ignored it. They had gotten exactly what they wanted. They had their setup. Jonathan had his house. Their plan had worked perfectly. They were living their dream. But the first real sign that something wasn't right came one evening when I opened up social media. After getting the house, Jonathan and Alice used to post constantly pictures of their furniture, their happy life, long messages about how thankful they were to have such caring parents. Then all of a sudden, nothing. No new posts, no updates, just silence. The last photo had been shared nearly 4 weeks earlier. Then I noticed a fresh picture. Jonathan and Alice sitting at a restaurant, smiling stiffly. The caption said, "Funny how quickly life changes." My stomach dropped. There was no other info, no context, just those strange and vague words. I opened the comment section, trying to find answers. One of Jonathan's friends had written, "Whoa, man, hope things turn out okay." Another said, "You guys are strong. You'll bounce back." Bounce back from what? I put the phone down, my heart thudding loudly in my ears. Something wasn't right, but I wasn't going to be the one to check in. They had shut me out, treated me like I didn't count. Let them deal with the consequences. Then 7 days later, my mother called. I stared at the screen, her name glowing as it rang. I didn't pick up. An hour passed. She called again, then once more. I sent each call to voicemail. The next morning, my father tried to call. Then Jonathan did too, one after the other. They all reached out. I ignored them all, until a message popped up that made me stop. It was from Jonathan. "I know you're upset, but we really need to talk. It's serious." I read it again, my fingers hovering over the screen. Jonathan had never been the type to contact me first. He was always too full of pride, too spoiled to ever admit he needed help. So if he was sending a message like that, something had to be very wrong. I slowly filled my lungs and typed, "Explain the reason." A short time passed, then Jonathan replied, "Please, just return here." I stared at the message, "Return here," as though this place was still mine, as though they hadn't already taken it from me. I didn't answer, but for the first time since I walked away, a strange feeling stayed in my chest, like the plan they were so proud of was now falling apart, and I didn't know what I might find if I came back. I didn't rush to them. Not after Jonathan's message, not even when the phone kept ringing, not when Mom kept leaving voice messages with that quiet begging voice she always used whenever she needed help. I said nothing for half a year. They acted like I didn't matter at all. Now suddenly I was the person they were reaching for? I didn't think for a moment that this was about saying sorry. They wanted something, and I had no plan to make it easy. But after 3 more full days of nonstop calls and texts, my curiosity finally won. I drove back, not because I missed anyone, not to speak to them, but because I had to find out what had gone wrong. As soon as I parked, I knew it was serious. The grass, which was always cut and clean, looked long and messy. The windows were shut tight. The house looked empty and quiet. But the biggest clue? A bright orange paper stuck to the front door that said foreclosure. I didn't even get time to understand what I was seeing before the front door opened and Mom came running outside. "Catherine!" She looked completely different. Her hair was messy, her shirt wrinkled, and big dark marks under her eyes showed she hadn't been resting. She grabbed my arm like she was scared I would leave. "Honey, we were about to call again. I'm so glad you came." I pulled my arm away. "What's happening?" She paused, but before she replied, Dad walked out too, pressing his hand to his forehead like he had a headache. "We're in trouble," he mumbled. I crossed both arms. "What kind of trouble?" Mom glanced at him, then looked at Jonathan, who had just walked into the doorway behind them, arms crossed, looking angry like I was making things worse, like I was the one causing the problem. I narrowed my eyes. "Start talking." Mom sighed and rubbed her hands nervously. "It's the home loan, Catherine." I stared straight at her. "The bank is going to take it," she said softly. "We didn't pay." I let the words sit in my mind. Then I laughed, but it had no feeling. "I never missed a single payment," I replied. Dad looked away. I turned to Jonathan. "How far behind are you?" His mouth tightened. "It's not my mistake." I raised one eyebrow. "Really? Last I knew you were living here." His fist clenched. "We just got a bit late. The bank's making it worse than it is." I didn't move. "Tell me exactly how many months, Jonathan." The silence was long. Then Mom cleared her throat and said, 5. My stomach felt heavy. 5 whole months. That wasn't a little late. That was close to losing the house for good. I took a slow breath. Everything finally made sense. Jonathan had spent the money. I had known about his gambling for years. It started with small bets, sports, cards, but grew into something worse. I always thought our parents covered for him, but now with the house under his name, he had used it all, and now they were scared. "You have to help us," Mom said, almost begging. I tilted my head a little. "Why would I help?" She blinked. "Catherine, this place is yours too." I let out a short, cold laugh. "That's funny, because 6 months ago, you told me to go live somewhere else." Dad sighed like I was being unfair. "Yes, we made mistakes," he said, "but the bank is coming soon. You only need me?" I interrupted. Quiet. No one said anything, because we all knew the truth. I wasn't the one they loved most. I wasn't the one they always defended, but I was the one they counted on. The one who always fixed the mess. And once again, they expected me to clean it up. I turned my eyes back to the foreclosure sign stuck to the door. If I walked off now, the bank would take the house within a few short weeks. But this house was meant to belong to me. And maybe, just maybe, I could make that happen again. I looked at Jonathan. "How much are you behind?" His arms dropped, clearly relieved. "A little more than $35,000. I gave a small nod. That was a big amount. But with my raise, leftover funds, and a solid plan, I could cover it. Just not for them, and not as a favor. I folded both arms. "I'll pay it." My mother gasped, clapping her hands together. "Oh, baby, we knew you'd come through." "But I have terms," I said, cutting her off. My father scowled. "Catherine." I lifted my palm. You don't get to speak." Everyone went quiet. I inhaled slowly, making sure my words were calm and firm. "If I clear the balance, this house is mine." My mom blinked in shock. "What?" "You will officially transfer it to me," I told them, "for a small price. Way less than the real value." They all froze. Jonathan's expression twisted with rage. "You're taking my house away from me," he growled. I tilted my head. "The house you didn't even pay for?" He opened his mouth, but before he could answer, Dad spoke first. "Catherine, that's wrong." I turned to him. "What's wrong is that I funded this house, and you gave it away like it was meaningless." He shut his lips, and I saw it clearly. They were stuck. No backup, no cash, no option. The house was close to being lost, and I was the only one who could prevent it. Mom's face went white. "You'd actually do this?" I locked eyes with her. "Yes." There was a long quiet. Then Dad sighed hard and rubbed his head. "All right," he mumbled. "We'll sign it over." I nodded slightly, ignoring the pounding in my chest. I had won, but I wasn't done yet. There was still one last step, and after everything was official, they'd realize they should have never taken this house from me. I didn't let myself feel proud until all the forms were signed, until my name was printed on the deed, until each document had been approved, stamped, and finalized. I couldn't trust them. I didn't, because for years I was the one who fixed problems, handled crises, kept everything together, and they took advantage of that. So I made sure nothing could be undone. No unclear rules, no backdoor tricks, no last-minute edits. And finally, 2 weeks later, the house was fully mine again. I sat across from them at the same kitchen table where they once told me to leave, where they gave Jonathan what I had worked years to build. I pushed a folded note toward him. Jonathan furrowed his brow and picked it up. "What is this?" I leaned back slightly. "Your 30-day eviction letter." The whole room went still. Then Jonathan chuckled, shaking his head. "You're messing with me." I tilted my head. "Do I look like I'm joking?" He looked at the note again. His smirk vanished. "You can't be serious. You promised to help us." I gave him a soft smile. "And I did. I paid off the balance. I stopped the bank from taking the house. I bought the house, Jonathan." I tapped the table gently. "Which means this isn't your place anymore." My mom gasped and reached for the paper. "Catherine, sweetheart, you never what?" I replied, keeping my voice calm. "Planned on letting me get my house back?" Jonathan swallowed hard. We figured you'd let Jonathan and Alice stay here. Without rent," I gave a fast, empty chuckle. "No way, not happening." Alice, who hadn't spoken once until now, finally said something. Her voice came out sharp and nervous. "Catherine, where exactly are we supposed to live?" I lifted an eyebrow. "I don't know. Maybe those kind-hearted relatives from your husband's side will take you both in." Then I turned to my parents. "Since you all felt Jonathan deserved the house more than I did, I assume you'll gladly welcome him into your place." My dad's eyes narrowed. "Catherine, this is cruel." I held his gaze. Giving away my house behind my back. That was cruel. This question mark. "This is setting things right." Jonathan slammed the document down. "You're not allowed to do this." I stayed seated, calm, and looked straight at him. "I already did." My mom's voice shook. "Catherine, we're family. Families don't treat each other like this." I stared at her for several seconds before leaning over, pressing my hands on the surface. "Families don't treat people the way you treated me." She flinched. I stood up, swung my bag over one shoulder, and said, "You've got 4 weeks to leave. Might want to start packing." Then I walked out. For the next month, they tried everything to make me change my decision. Jonathan and Alice took turns begging and threatening. Alice phoned me, crying, saying they had no place to go. Jonathan sent message after message, yelling at me, blaming me for ruining his future. My parents begged too, saying it was unfair to do this over a mix-up, but I didn't answer. Not even once. I had already done more than I should have for all of them. On the last day listed in the eviction notice, I drove over to see if they had moved out. When I arrived, the driveway was full of boxes. Jonathan and Alice were arguing near their car. Alice was wiping away tears in frustration. My parents were helping carry their stuff because now they had no other option. Jonathan and Alice were moving in with them. I rolled down the window. My tone was light. All set? Jonathan turned, his face red with anger. You're unbelievable, I smiled. And you're a lousy tenant. Looks like we both learned something new. My mom looked at me with pleading eyes. Catherine, don't do this. I looked at her with a flat expression. You're the one who told me I should go find somewhere else. Did you forget? She sucked in a breath. I shifted into park and stepped out, walking toward the porch, the one that belonged to me again. You made your choice, I said, folding my arms. Now you live with it. Alice muttered something while dragging the final suitcase to the car. Jonathan stood there, staring at me like he wanted to break something. But he couldn't change anything. They were leaving, and I was staying. I stepped back into my house, finally my house, and closed the door behind me. No one would ever take it from me again.